Basketball is losing its focus on winning. Just taking that tweet in a vacuum and hearing it, what do you hear in that? What is your reaction?
Well, I think it's interesting with basketball because you have much more of a binary thing about who wins the MVP. Like, if you don't win, you don't win the MVP. Now, part of what's changing in basketball is the impact of one player isn't what it used to be, right? Like, Anthony Davis has been as good as we thought he was going to be, and the Pelicans can't win because the impact of one player just isn't what it used to be. In baseball, we've seen this where voters have decided, you know what, we're not going to blame one guy for the fact that the rest of his teammates aren't that good, and the voting in those awards has changed consequently. But I don't think that this is decreasing the significance of winning by the MVP votes going this way. Because ask LeBron what will happen if he doesn't win a championship this year, if all of a sudden we're going to be like, winning doesn't matter anymore. It still does in the final article. But for these awards, it's a regular season award. I think that we overestimate how much regular season wins matter.
To then spin that forward, that to me is at the root of the problem. And Jeff Van Gundy actually was on here with us on Friday, and he said the media bears a lot of responsibility in this because we and all of us have made this all about just counting up rings. You start counting guys' rings, and that's how we judge them in the end. So how can we blame them for viewing it that way? But one way or another, the problem with the league, and Adam Silver said it's the biggest problem on Friday, can be boiled down to the simple phrase, they've made the regular season not matter. We have all collectively made the regular season not matter. Omani, do you have a solution or the beginning of a solution for that if indeed you deem it to be a problem?
The reason the regular season is probably never going to matter in the NBA is that once you start getting to postseason in series and stuff like that, nothing that happened before is really going to matter. Like, if you've got the best players, or more importantly in the playoffs, it's really your top three generally against the other team's top three. And then everything else shakes out because the rotations get shorter and everything else. Every team seems to have come to realize if we just get to the postseason, that's when this is going to matter. This is when we're going to be able to string this thing through. You're not going to be able to make it quote-unquote matter. Baseball has made their regular season matter because so few teams make the playoffs, even though their postseason is a random championship generator, as my man Andy Glockner says. You don't have once you get there, it's only 6 teams. But along the way, the regular season wouldn't matter if it were more teams that got into the playoffs. Unless basketball is going to go to only 4 teams making the playoffs, which I don't think any of us actually want, the regular season is largely going to be a collection of exhibition games. If you enjoy watching basketball, you'll enjoy the regular season, but you're never going to be able to place the urgency and significance on individual games that you have in football with only 16 of them. Hockey is another example where the regular season, we can easily argue the regular season doesn't matter because anybody in hockey can get into the postseason and wind up winning. But people enjoy watching hockey games, so they don't mind the fact that it doesn't quote-unquote matter.
I'm with you on all of that. Everything you just said I agree with. Did you see Tom Aberstro's piece last week in which he made an argument and he quoted a bunch of people who have like economics professors next to their name? I don't know how you go about finding those people and deciding who's right and who's wrong because you probably could get just as many that would disagree. But he was trying to make a case that they could shorten the NBA regular season, perhaps even substantially, and not cost themselves a bunch of money. If they could do that, and I know you have a background in all this economics, if they could figure out a way to do that, Bomani, do you think they should?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'd be with that just as long as you make sure that every team plays one game in every city, because I think that there's something to that. But no, if they could find a way to recoup the money, like I remember when I saw that, people talked about Haberstro's piece, I was like, y'all gonna talk to Skipper? Because you have to be able to guarantee to the TV people that they will get an increase in ratings in line with an increase in revenue to make it worth it to cut the games. But I do agree, we have too many regular season games, and it's crazy to think, not only do we have too many regular season games, they haven't increased the number of games played in a season in 30, 40 years. Like we've had too many regular season games for a long time. Before we even had all this knowledge of the fact, we've had way too many of them for a long time. So I do think that they need to cut them down. I do think that it would be helpful for the league probably to have fewer regular season games, but nobody's giving away money. Like to me, all the changes that the NBA probably needs to make probably cost money. They need to widen the court. That cuts down on the number of seats. They don't want to give back the money, but as any Domino's player tell you, all money ain't good money. All money ain't good money.
So with the regular season really not mattering, do we make anything of what happened in Cleveland yesterday in Atlanta? Boy, all my friends tell me, hey, don't worry. Once the playoffs come, Cleveland will flip that switch and away they go through the Eastern Conference. Are you concerned at all about the Cavaliers in the East?
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point we have to entertain the possibility they're not that good. right? And I think there's a certain irony in the way that we all assume that they can get to the finals or whatever it is simply because they have LeBron James, even though if that were true, LeBron would have never left Cleveland in the first place. Like, we have had it proven to us that you got to put the right things around LeBron to win. He's human after all, even if he seems like a superhero from time to time. But they are a bad defensive team. They gave up 44 points in the fourth quarter last night, and it's now just at a point where it's, do they just play bad defense, or are they fundamentally a bad defensive team? Because it seems more and more like that's the case. And if that's the case, they might be able to get through the East, but nothing about this team says championship contender except the existence of LeBron James.
Mike and Bomani Jones is with us. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. He's on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You hear him every afternoon, coast to coast, here on ESPN Radio with his show, The Right Time. And we can debate a lot of different things. But Bomani, to me, there is no debate on this. The single best problem any sports team has, and perhaps has ever had, is that the Patriots cannot find a place to hang their fifth championship banner. This is actually a story that Mike Reese is reporting, that the Patriots are in a conundrum because when they designed their new stadium, they designed space to put championship banners, and there was only room for 4. So the big problem they have right now in Foxborough, Bomani, is they can't figure out where to hang their most recent championship banner.
I'm surprised that Bob Kraft did not build that stadium with more ambition than this, right? Like this is an interesting thing. Like, this is like when people schedule concerts at the arena during the NBA Finals. Like, wait, y'all didn't think I was going to get this far? I'm a little shocked by this. So they got it. Okay, so there's 1-on-1, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. What do they wind up doing with the fifth one? I have no answer for how it is that you are supposed to solve this problem. Maybe you rotate them in and out, or you decide which one of your kids you don't like the most and you make them move out the house. Like, I feel like of those, the 2004 one, they could probably do without that, right? I think they could let that one slip.
Is that the one where they beat Carolina? Was that one? Is that the 04 one? Was that the one?
No,
where,
the 04 one is the one against the Eagles.
No, the Rams is the first one. That was 02.
Okay.
And
yeah, the Rams are the 01 season. The Panthers were the 04. I mean, 03, the 04 season was the one against the Eagles. I mean, come on, it's the Eagles. In fact, you should let the Eagles hang that up so they can have a Super Bowl banner in their stadium, right? They don't really know nothing about that life down there in Philadelphia. Just let them, like, stitch on their own Eagles stuff over it or something like that. Like, give them a little something.
There's got to be some way they can maybe send it out on some sort of barnstorming tour where their fans can have it for a day like they do with the Stanley Cup. Or just the fact that this is the problem that they have as someone who has spent his whole life rooting for their arch rival is so nauseating that it's actually difficult for me to continue.
Yeah, I can tell this really bothers you. Greeny all morning has been really bothered by the fact that the Jets only have one title and the Patriots can't find a place for their fifth one.
I mean, that's what constitutes a problem.